I didn't know anybody else was coming. Welcome. I know it doesn't look like a huge space, but there's room for at least one or two more. Um, yeah, there's a lot of media personalities here. You've noticed that. Well, I invited them because I figured since they've been so magnificently wrong for the last 2 years, completely and entirely wrong, believing in unreal things, essentially impossible things, and occupying the public's attention with that for the last 2 years, that at the very least, the president that they've called a foreign agent, that they've said has been working with Vladimir Putin, or at the very least, they may argue, no, we didn't say it. We just made one innuendo after the next that such was completely and entirely true. The least they can do is listen to the president's response to the Mueller report that for all intents and purposes and for the rest of the public will vindicate that Donald Trump was right about you and your Democratic colleagues that you've essentially been following around were spewing fake news. The least they could do was come, and they were nice enough to come. I brought my own friends, people who I wanted to be associated with. They are here with me to sit with the media and watch the media bitch and moan about Donald Trump not being guilty of the thing that they've been accusing him of for the last 2 years. Let's hear him out. All right, guys. Take a seat. And let's hear Trump do his thing.
Investigation. After so many people have been so badly hurt, after not looking at the other side, where a lot of bad things happened, a lot of horrible things happened, a lot of very bad things happened for our country. It was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration. It's a shame that our country had to go through this. To be honest, it's a shame that your president has had to go through this before I even got elected. It began. And it began illegally. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to be looking at the other side. So it's complete exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. Thank you very much.
Well, you heard the president's response. Complete, total exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. The president would immediately use this win now to go and attack the mainstream media and attack his Democratic colleagues for essentially putting fake news over the entirety of the rest of the nation. With this complete delegitimization of what's considered to be the left in the United States, meaning the Democratic Party and the media apparatus in the United States, it is going to be a hard argument to get Trump voters who have somewhat of a skeptical point of view of the media in and of itself to regard a lot of what Donald Trump has said that is nonsense as actual nonsense, seeing as the mainstream media has been putting an overarching narrative of nonsense for the past 2 years. I hope that makes sense. A few things. Donald Trump is right that the means in which he was investigated in this way is somewhat sketchy. I mean, we're talking about a FISA warrant that was fueled by information from a political ops campaign that was somehow brought into the FBI and used to come up with a case to spy on the Trump campaign. Those were dubious beginnings to begin with. This thing where the people who were investigating Hillary Clinton for issues with her email, and with anybody else, I think the overwhelming majority of the people, if they were asked, if they were real honest about their answer, they would probably be prosecuted, with the exception, meaning Hillary Clinton gets off with the overwhelming majority of the rest of the country would be prosecuted. Comey lists one failing after the next, then comes away from this idea of listing her failings with not guilty. No reasonable prosecutor would bring the case. And you find out that Comey was being pushed. My point in this, it is very strange that Clinton got off, and the same people who got Clinton off got Donald Trump on. She gets off one case, and the case resumes with Donald Trump. And in this case, Donald Trump is somehow colluding with Russia, and thus becomes a political fodder for the next 2 years. Either way you want to look at this, however, this has been a mainstream media failure. And I have no love for Donald Trump. But of all the things you could have pointed to, you could have said, hey, look at the gerrymandering. Hey, look at the interstate cross-check and the way that it's knocking people off the voter rolls. Hey, look at these failings with our own electoral system. Maybe these people are pissed off because of the economic woes. Look at the gerrymandering that makes it difficult for certain candidates to get in office. Look at all of these other things, none of which have anything to do with the Russians. Look at the amount of money that goes into our political campaigns, where corporations can dump all of this cash into our political campaigns. Look at all of these other things that plague our electoral system. We don't even know in many cases when we make a vote that that is indeed the person that we voted for. But yes, the problem in all of this is the Russians. This has been a mainstream media failure for 2 years. Donald Trump's response here, whatever you want to think of Donald Trump, is right. He lies 1,000 times a minute. That is absolutely true. But you delegitimize yourself when such an overarching story is made into the narrative. And you find out that all of the energy and everything that they've been putting into this story for the last 2 years have been bogus. Is it possible that Donald Trump has some kind of ties with Russia that may be illegal? Yes, it's possible. It's possible that Donald Trump is probably doing something illegal with his business. Yes, it's very possible. Is it possible that Donald Trump has been cheating on his taxes for all these years? Yes, that is also possible. But did Trump collude with the Russians to beat Hillary Clinton by your own standards? That answer is no. I'll leave it here. I think so.